Hey, I'm Romy Illano. I'm currently an iPhone developer. I program iPhone apps that are associated with the connected home, connected car, and I'm contracting right now at the Mercedes-Benz Research and Development Center down in Sunnyvale. It's a really cool place. I'm really happy to be here because I know a lot of you are designers and product managers. Well, I used to be a designer and product manager too before I became a software engineer. So the past 4 years I've been a developer, but I know where you're coming from because I used to be any one of your roles. And over my career, I've seen a lot of the barriers go down between being a designer and being a developer. I've seen a lot of the roles mix more than they used to be. And I've seen a lot of things become more open. So there's more to being a designer than there was, I say, 10 or 15 years ago. And there's more to being a product developer. And people are joining together. And I'm going to show you about designing for the real world Internet of Things. Just like a musician might scrawl an idea on the back of a napkin, a lot of IoT ideas start out being drawn on a napkin in a cafe. You're going to have a lot of these projects where people come up with ideas and then they fundraise them on, say, Kickstarter. Or you might be at a corporate R&D center and people will come up with an idea and a prototype and present it with slides. Or you might be at a startup and people will be shopping around for VCs to get funding, all the while building out the implementation of their app. So you're gonna the very early stage, you're gonna have these very early prototypes, and that's probably gonna be the very first part of a journey where a lot of you sign on. And then you're gonna have these demos. These will be demos that you'll see at conferences, and again, they're not really the final product. So. I would like you guys to think of yourselves as sort of part of the stage crew for a music concert. You're going to have a lot of people who would 10 years ago would not have talked to each other as much as they are now, especially when you have people working in hardware and software and design. But now, because there's a lot of startups and fast iterations, and the production cycles are much faster, I think as a designer, you're going to have a much stronger role. You're going to be working a lot more closely with QA. You're going to be working a lot more closely with product and with engineering than you were before. The final product, it'll be totally worth it. And you're going to have these consumer-level products that are designed faster, brought faster to the market than they were before. But as I said, the road there is difficult. Designing for IoT has a lot of roadblocks, and I'm going to show you some things that I've observed and probably give you some tips to help you out. Here's a famous tour writer from Van Halen. Every time they would go to a new venue, they would have this very thick legal contract with how to write things, and then this very tiny detail that there'd be absolutely no brown M&Ms in their dressing room. I guess the idea is that details are really important in a project, especially for ones that are ambiguous, like IoT. You're going to be working in a lot of cross-functional teams on designs that are very ambiguous. You're going to be working with hardware, QA, and developers, and everyone's going to have their own set of tools. I personally believe that as a designer, you can help your team do better by helping design better documents for them to communicate with each other. Often, there's going to be a lot of confusion over how a product should work. And not only are you going to design the wireframes, but nowadays, your wireframes are used for QA. So I really do believe, being an engineer and working with QA, that I feel like you could really have a very strong role in making the team run better and helping these get delivered faster by helping create clear and beautiful documents. There's a lot of ambiguity with how these products work, and the more diagrams you help out with, the better. Even arming your executives or your QA team with a few PowerPoint slides with quick and easy diagrams that they could copy and paste with labels, it will help with the communication between your team, and it will make you be much more involved in the process. Another thing is pretty much for all these consumer-connected products, you're going to want to be aware of getting caught in these scenarios that are very familiar. So since most connected home products or connected health products have a mobile element, I see a lot of people falling into the trap of only designing mobile wireframes. They're if you're going to have a thermostat, or if you're going to have people moving their bodies in a certain way or putting on a wearable. I think it's probably better to enable your team and create tools that help build a better product by creating like the full diagram. Often these things don't end up in the team's hands until like you actually have to produce something for marketing. But as a software engineer, I just really think that everyone will feel better about the product, and you'll be misinterpreted less if you can actually include this in stuff that you give to your engineers and even your QA team. Another thing I would like you to think about is to really think hard about your personas when you design for different kinds of people. I sort of like country music a little, and this is Darius Zucker. I don't think he's like a lot of people's ideas of a big country music star, but he's pretty big and quite good and quite popular. A lot of these products are going to be designed for baby boomers. They're probably one of the wealthiest generations in the US, and they're living their lives much differently from most senior citizens have lived in the past. They're much more active in doing things. So when you think about designing things for your grandparents or grandma, I would say don't underestimate them. For a lot of the IoT products in the consumer world, I feel like the baby boomers are going to be a very important market. They're doing 47% of all the home improvement projects. They're getting really into healthcare. And most importantly, like anything that's very simple and easy to understand, you're going to have that be applicable to both a health nut and like entry-level, like senior citizen person. Like moms are very big early adopters too. Like one of the big surprise hits that I've seen was the Amazon Dash button, which is this little button you can buy, and I guess it's technically IoT, and you just press it, and it just sends you an automatic new Tide or like dishwashing detergent. I was hearing that like a lot of like mainstream moms are buying a lot of this, and a lot of people are buying like Alexa and Fitbit devices. These people might not be your idea of cutting edge tech people, but I would think about designing for them too. And then this is not so related to IoT, but a lot of people, I don't think they realize, especially if you worked in the mobile industry, that the people that the quickest and earliest adopters for mobile technology, for sharing social networks, sharing photos on social networks, even back into the 2000s, are working class immigrants all over the world. It was second generation laborers in China, it was migrant workers in Dubai that were using the most advanced cell phones way before, like, say, mainstream Americans or Europeans were. I feel like they're going to have a big role in the new wave of IoT. I don't really know big examples yet, but yeah, open your mind and like take a look at these people too. As I said, like the roles of the people in the team in QA with design, with UX, I feel like it's become more like a jazz band. The more like you interact with the team and the closer you sit with your engineers in QA, I think the better. QA and design, this is a combination I feel could be brought together a lot more than it is. The QA people, like they're going to be using your app and like trying to break your design. Usually you'll see QA sitting with engineers, but the designers, like they have a big opportunity here, especially with things like error handling, and sitting in with QA during the QA cycle, like talking to them, even involving them in design meetings. I think it's like a really good idea. Like this is becoming more popular now, but having designers sit directly with the developers and involving in the processes, like I think this has become very popular in startups, not so much in like larger companies, but like the engineers, especially for new technology, are going to come up with ideas and tell you what is and isn't possible and help you out in designing your product. And then when another big lesson I learned is it's really a mistake to design only for the happy path. And the happy path is what most people design for and what most people will put on their Kickstarter. By happy path, I mean this scenario in which your IoT product works perfectly. There's so many cases where this doesn't happen, but like you're going to have to like design a whole bunch of cases for errors, like error handling, sync problems, I like cases where like the design, like you have to pretend that the product actually works, but and then like last minute say, oh, it didn't work. Like cross-device design is complex. You're going to run into a lot of these situations. Like, please design for them. I see again and again that sometimes like these don't come up until halfway through the project. And latency is a major, major issue. Like, make sure that you have a very clear understanding of latency in IoT projects. There are cases where everything will work perfectly fine. So, like, say these are hue lights. If you're on your home Wi-Fi network, they're going to work like almost immediately. But when you leave the house, you'll have latency of 8 to 12 seconds. I think this is something that often falls on the engineers to figure out towards the end after they've developed these designs. But I think like the designers should be involved in this too. And then, yeah, that's it. Those are lessons that I've learned. And I'd like you to go out and create great things on your projects.